Let's see. Maybe not. Okay, yeah.
Good morning and welcome to the August 8th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the July 25th, 2019 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes is opened. All right, Mike Quasney made the motion to approve the meeting minutes, and Karen seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Setback abutting a street for an accessory structure from 35 feet to 18 feet and to allow a lot coverage of 34% in lieu of 30% allowed. The subject property is approximately 0.15 acres in size and is zoned medium density residential district. This is an aerial overview of the property, noting its location along Fulton Street and 11th Street. There's an existing single-family residence on the lot and an existing accessory shed. For the proposed garage that the applicant is intending to construct, the shed will be removed as a part of that. Future land use for the property identifies it as urban neighborhood. And on the city's major street plan, both Fulton Street and 11th Street are identified as local streets. This is the site plan that was submitted with the application, and specifically what the applicant is intending to do is to construct a 24 by 24 foot garage west of the existing single family home. That setback along Fulton Street is shown at 18 feet. By ordinance, that would be required to be 35 feet. The applicant intends to construct the two-car garage to provide off-street parking. The parking lot to the north of the property is occupied by regional health admin offices, and they would like to have some type of covered parking for their vehicles off-site. Currently, reasonable use on the property does exist. The proposed garage could be redesigned as a one-stall garage and potentially meet setback requirements. In addition, a concrete pad could be poured to provide off-street parking in order to get off the street. Staff therefore would recommend to deny the variance request to reduce the side yard setback for the accessory structure from 35 feet to 18 feet, citing that reasonable use exists on the land currently and that it is not the minimum adjustment necessary to provide that reasonable use. This is the photo of the elevations for the proposed shed. It'd be 17 feet high to the peak. The mean height would be in compliance with Rapid City Municipal Code below the 15-foot height requirement. It is worth noting that the proposed structure is part of the West Boulevard Historic District, and it has been reviewed administratively by staff and was determined to not cause any deterioration to the historic district. It is not a contributing structure. This is the photo that was submitted by the applicant showing their existing curb cut that they have onto Fulton Street, the location of the existing shed, and some of the construction that's going on in the area, and that, again, that existing curb cut onto Fulton Street. Staff would prefer that if the proposed shed were reoriented to the alley with access there, setbacks could be compliant, especially for a one-car garage, a one-stall garage. I was able to visit the site and take a few site photos. This is showing the house and the existing shed looking across Fulton Street to the south. A view of the existing shed, and that would be removed as a part of this application. View back to the east. View back to the south down along 11th Street. And a view to the west and to the north of the subject property. As I mentioned, this is not the minimum adjustment necessary to provide reasonable use on the land, and as such, staff would recommend denial of the variance request to reduce the side yard setback abutting a street from 35 feet to 18 feet for the accessory structure, and the increase in lot coverage from 30% to 34%. At this point, staff would be available with any questions you have, and I believe the applicant is also in the audience. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We do have a speaker request from the applicant on this item. Are there any questions for staff before we go to that? Mike?
A couple of questions I have. In that area, it seems like we had a lot of times we'll have higher than the 30% coverage because of the area and the way that they built in the past. Is that not true?
In that area, there are several structures and several properties that may have that increased lot coverage. For this property in particular, it currently is in compliance with the lot coverage below 30%. The addition of the garage would exceed the 30%. So at the moment, it would currently be below that 30% threshold. So.
Okay, the other question, it looks like that, what is the distance between the house and the garage? And maybe you don't know that they're planning. Could that be moved over?
Here, let me bring up the site. So we don't have the distance labeled on this site plan currently between the garage and the structure. The requested variance for the setback is from the street side here. This distance wouldn't necessarily have any impact on the request as it was filed for the application.
And then that front area there is larger than a normal, as I saw it. The 30, is that 35 feet, or that front area before the sidewalk, is that larger than normal?
It is a wider width for the boulevard. The property line would be located along the sidewalk here. There is a wider boulevard along Fulton Street, though, on that north side.
Right.
Mr. Chair, maybe if we could have Todd explain standard boulevard widths that we would secure today.
Todd?
Currently today, we would require 52 feet of right-of-way, and that would be a local street with a 5-foot boulevard. This street appears to have about a 100-foot boulevard, but it's pretty normal for that area.
Okay. All right, that's all I have at this point.
I don't see any other lights up, so I'll call Stan Allard if you'd like to approach the mic. And if you could, just say your name and address so we have it on the audio record.
Stan Allard, 1101 11th Street,
Thank you.
which is also the corner of 11th and Fulton. First, John and I talked earlier. I believe there's a discrepancy in the city codes that all other, he said this is a sub-collector street, all other streets only require a 25-foot setback for a garage. For whatever reason, the sub-collector street doesn't have that phrase in. But beside that, we're still asking for the variance because we're asking for less than 25 even, obviously. We believe that this would match the neighborhood, that almost every, on our block particularly, obviously 4 corner buildings. The other 3 corner buildings all have garages with street access. If we were to have to meet the 35-foot setback and the 30% lot coverage, that would only leave room for a 10-foot wide by maybe 29-foot long garage, and access from the alley, which that's a really crowded alley back there with hedges and everything in it, would not be much more than a large storage shed. Feasibly get 1 car in, but not 2. The reason for the street access, because we are across the street from the parking lot that's used by the city, or excuse me, Rapid City Regional Hospital Administration Building, and also nursing school is there. Anything within a block or even 2 blocks of that parking lot is filled during school year with nursing students. If we come home during the day, if we don't have off-street parking, we don't have any place to park because it's always taken, usually. And like you mentioned, many of the lots in there do have greater coverage than the 30%, and they do have less setbacks. I mentioned the other 4 corners of our block. One of those I think has a 16-foot setback on the garage, another a 20, and one does have over 35, a larger lot, and the garage is set back further. But 2 of the other 3 corner lots on our block have even less than setback than we're asking for. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you. If any of the planning commissioners have questions, we might ask you to step up again. Any questions or comments? Kurt?
I saw on the photos that it looked like was that Fulton Street being reconstructed. Is Fulton going to be wider, or is it going to be the same cross-section as it existed before?
It's essentially the same width as what's there today.
Okay, so that wide boulevard isn't going to get narrower then, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, it's a corner lot, and what's the setbacks? I mean, which is considered the side yard and which is the front yard?
Mr. Chair, on corner lots, you would have a side yard that matches the front yard required setback. So both the corner sides would have the required front yard setbacks by municipal code. So in this case, the front yard, it looks like, would be on the east side of the residence, and then along the north side, that would be the side yard abutting a street, which would have the same requirements then as a front yard setback. So this east side over here would be the required front yard, and then this north side up here would be the side yard abutting a street, which would also have front yard setback requirements.
So it's got to meet front yard setback on 2 sides then,
For
right?
corner lots, correct.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicki?
So the difficulty is that this property is a little over 6,534 square feet, which is our typical residential lot. in many areas of our community, it meets the minimum lot size. It does have a large home on it. So the fact that it's a level lot, it looks like that the garage would be more than 90 feet from the front lot line, so they could push it back and only have a 5-foot setback to that lot line, which would allow them an oversized one-stall garage. I think what John pointed out is they could do that and create an uncovered parking pad if they do need the 2 off-street parking spaces. So we appreciate what it is that they're proposing to do. We just couldn't get past that there is no special circumstance here that others don't have to also address when they're wanting to expand or do something new on their property. And reasonable use would be established with the existing home and a one-stall garage. But we certainly leave it up to Zoning Board of Adjustment to make your decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki. Other questions or comments on this item? Don't have any other lights up from the board here. Anybody have a motion then? I understand it's a tough item. Karen?
I understand the staff's position, and I tend to agree. It's probably my background, I suppose. But it's hard for me to get past the fact that there's reasonable use of the land, and so I will make a motion to deny and see where that goes, because it does have reasonable use of the land, and I don't know if we need any other stipulations. Okay.
Is there a second to Karen's motion? Vince seconded the motion. Further discussion on the motion? Mike Kwasny?
No, as I understand it, we're getting rid of some gravel, which we've been trying to do for a long time by, in the process here. Did I read that in this, that there's a gravel area there? I didn't get a chance to go out and actually look at it. I did want to, and we would get rid of that, and we've worked real hard to try to replace concrete in those areas. So this would be a benefit if we allowed this to happen. Now, I know we could do it without allowing this. I don't know if they're willing to at that point. I can understand the want for a 2-stall garage. I think it's the house value is increased substantially when you have a 2-stall versus a 1-stall. But I probably will vote against denying it. So.
Yeah, Mr. Allard, if you could step up to the microphone.
I believe a one-stall garage would not suit our purposes enough to be worth building. If this is denied, we'd most likely stay with the gravel driveway and the existing storage shed, which does not match the neighborhood nearly as well as a garage would. Okay. So, like I mentioned earlier, if to stay within the without needing variance, we would only be allowed a 10-foot wide building to match the setbacks. And turning off the tight alley, that'd be difficult to approach. It would not be worth the cost of construction to us.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
while the property owner is there, so there is some allowances in the ordinance if you attach the garage to the existing home. Is that an option?
This is a contributing structure to the historic district. By attaching a garage, that would be taken away, so that would not be allowed in this case.
Okay, just again, trying to figure out something to assist him. Point of fact that the first 50 feet of a driveway must be paved, independent of whether he's building a garage or not. He's grandfathered in today. But in the future, if this garage doesn't go, if you were to secure a building permit for something else, then the requirement would be that the first 50 feet be paved.
Rachel?
Yeah, I'm really struggling with this right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just because a 35-foot wide Boulevard just feels very large to me. And so it's 35 feet from the street and then an additional 35 feet from that boulevard that's 70 feet from the street. I mean, that's a pretty large gap. But at the same time, I don't know, you know, since the Zoning Board of Adjustments, we can't, you know, we have to give a legal justification. I'm really struggling because you know, I can't just do it because it makes sense. It has to actually follow the law, and it's a real tough one, you know.
Mr. Chair?
Vicki?
So something to think about, too. The Zoning Board of Adjustment has been very clear that at a minimum, in front of a garage, they want to have a 20-foot setback because of vehicles parking and not overhanging the sidewalk. So independent of the width of the boulevard, we still have that sidewalk 18 foot from the front of the garage. And that kind of goes back to if the garage is more than 90 foot back from the front, it could be pulled closer to what direction is that lot line?
That'd be the south.
South lot line, from 5 foot, or from 8 foot to 5 foot, and then trying to maintain a minimum 20-foot setback.
Mr. Allard, if you give me just a second. Kurt, did you have a question?
The
1 second, sorry.
To me, with a with a lot, you know, this size, it really seems unreasonable to have 2 front yard setbacks. It really constrains them on what they can do in that. You know, they are, looks like they're going to be 18 feet away from the sidewalk. So that should be plenty of room to handle a vehicle parked in the driveway without overhanging onto the sidewalk. I just think it's unreasonable to have 2 side yards or front yard setbacks on a lot this size. So I'm going to go probably with denying the motion.
Mr. Allard, did you have another comment?
The garage, if 20 foot was asked for, the garage could be moved back. We built in 8 foot behind it when we only need 5 foot. I put it at 18 feet because there's also still another foot between our lot line and the sidewalk, which is a total of 19 feet without a vehicle hanging over the sidewalk. If requested, it could be moved back to 20 feet. And that would in effect leave 21 feet between the garage and the sidewalk. So that should answer that problem if necessary.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor currently is to deny the variance. Karen, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If this applicant is willing to pull that back farther to the south and get that 20-foot setback, that helps me a little bit in saying, well, this is more reasonable. I'm not sure about whether the Historic Preservation Commission would deny the fact that you attach it to the house. It depends on if it was a breezeway or something like that. You might want to consider that as an option. I don't know, but your house structure would still stay the same, and they do allow for like a garage that's separated and doesn't change the fact of the historic, district. But I'm going to leave my motion, but if somebody wants to make a substitute motion, I'd probably go for that too. So thank you.
Kurt.
Yeah, I'll make a substitute motion to approve with the garage being slid to the south an additional 2 feet, making a 6-foot side yard setback on the back of the garage, and making his driveway 20 feet wide. I don't know if all that needs to be in the motion, but the motion would be to approve if they slide the garage 2 feet to to the south.
Okay.
If the motion maker would accept the friendly amendment, the variance then would be to reduce a side yard setback abutting a street from 35 feet to 20 feet, and then to allow a maximum lot coverage of 34 feet in lieu of 30-foot coverage. And then you do need to cite a criteria for 30%, not feet. And you do need to cite criteria, one of the stated criteria for the purposes of granting the variance.
I don't know what to cite, I guess, but
An example would be noting that the wide boulevard creates a special circumstance.
my thought on it is that and maybe this isn't a proper variance to change that, is that I think it's unreasonable to have 2 front yard setbacks on a lot that size. Is that acceptable?
We have corner lots all over town. That would be opening up a can of worms.
So the one criteria that we do have, correct, is a special circumstance that this lot has that others do not, and that wide boulevard that Vicki mentioned would be a more limited circumstance than corner lots.
Yeah, I like that.
That works for you? Okay, so we now have a substitute motion on the floor from Kurt and seconded by Mike Kwasny to allow a 20-foot setback for an accessory structure and a maximum lot coverage of 34%, and citing the special circumstance of this lot having a much larger than normal right-of-way in front of it. Rachel, comments on this substitute motion?
Just a quick comment, friendly amendment, that the combination of the 35-foot wide boulevard and the fact that it's a corner lot, I think really just increases the fact that it's a special circumstance. Do you accept that friendly amendment? Thank you.
All right. Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't get this to work, so can I see the pictures again? The actual, photographs of the area. Okay. And the alley is to the right on this picture, am I correct?
Correct. It would be west of the property line.
And the hedges don't belong to the homeowner that is here with us today, correct? Are those your hedges, sir? No, okay.
No, they're on the other side of the They're on the other side of the alley, but mostly, other than maybe a foot or two of them, those hedges are in the alley.
That's what it looked like to me, too.
They're in the right-of-way. That's why I say, without having that homeowner remove those hedges, alley access would be very difficult.
Thank you.
Other pictures looking down the alley.
Karen?
Excuse me. I was planning to support the motion until Rachel added the amendment. To put the corner lot as part of the reason would still open a can of worms, I think, because in my neighborhood, there's a house that has 3 streets on all sides, and it makes it difficult, I know, but it's just hard for us to support something that is totally across the board. Everybody's got corner lots across, the city, and so I just don't think that's a right thing to put in as part of the motion. But I know that area of town is really congested and it is hard, and so part of my reasoning for saying I'll support this is because there's cars everywhere over there, and to get some cars off the street is going to be nice. And using the alley is not an option. I thought about that too, but that is not an option. You couldn't get at something and try to turn your car in there, even if it was an alley, I don't think. But it's still hard for me to vote for it, but just because of the law. But I will, because I think it's a proper thing to do, and the houses are set back so far. But I don't want it to be necessarily open up a can of worms for all the people who have big, large boulevards either. So that's my other option of wavering it. But if Rachel will take that off, I would support the motion. So thank you.
I need someone better than at parliamentary procedure than me up here. Rachel.
Okay, I would just like to clarify that it's the combination of the two factors that makes it, I think, even more of a special circumstance, simply because there are a lot of lots in this neighborhood that have the 35-foot, or I guess it's 34, this very wide boulevard. And there are, of course, lots all over the city that are corner lots. But it's the fact that these two things are combined makes it really hard to actually use this particular lot properly. But I'm fine with taking it off if that's going to get it passed. I just think it makes it actually more of a constraint rather than opening it up more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Really up to the motion maker and second on Rachel and Karen's comments. Kurt, start with you.
I'm good with
Okay.
whatever it is.
The combination of corner lot and wide boulevard.
Yes, the combination.
Okay.
I understand the concern of staff, and I agree very much with Karen that we can open up cans of worms up here, and the concern is that those cans of worms become a big problem for us. If that, I understand the combination, but I also struggle with setting precedents, and we've done this before, and so I think we're kind of setting a little precedence here, but I think this is a unique situation on this lot. Boy, I kind of go along with Karen in that we should probably take off the corner lot recommendation.
Kurt?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We should, I would rather take out the corner lot and leave it at the wide boulevard is the reason.
Okay. All right. Motion maker and second agree. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Something that we established earlier as reasonable use already exists for this property, and there have been some alternatives suggested that could in fact occur, such as a single stall garage along with a pad, therefore giving us two-car off-street parking. So with consideration for all that's been said up here, I cannot support the motion as stated. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a substitute motion on the floor to approve the variance to a 20-foot setback for an accessory structure and 34% lot coverage. Any other comments or questions on this motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion carries with 2 noes, Vince and Eric. Item number 3.
Morning. Item number 3 is a variance request for 608 Odie Place. It's to reduce the minimum required side yard setback for a second-story attached garage from 12 feet to 8.49 feet. showing that OD Drive is accessed from East Minnesota Street to the south. Our property is located on a cul-de-sac in the zone low-density residential district. There's an existing single-family dwelling with an attached garage located on the property. The applicant's proposing to construct an addition on that west side, which would be 2 stories in height, requiring a minimum 12-foot side yard setback. Low-density neighborhood, and then you can see the major street plan, Elm Avenue to the west, East Minnesota Street to the south, being minor arterial streets, but OD Place would be a local street. Site plan showing the proposed attached garage with a 2nd story. So the dwelling that is currently located on the property is was determined to be a 1-story, requiring a minimum 8-foot side yard setback. But we can see on this west side there's a 10.51, and on the west 9.62. So those would both be in compliance with 1-story, but they wouldn't be in compliance with a 2-story structure. So the applicant's proposing to construct a setback garage with an 8.49 foot setback, where a 12-foot setback would be required for both the existing structure and the garage. In the ordinance, we do have part of the code that says if a 2nd story is, if someone wants to add a 2nd story to a 1-story structure, they can keep an 8-foot setback for the 1-story as long as the 2nd story is set back 20 feet total from the property line. But that's really confusing. So what we did was we changed the variance request for a 2-story structure from 12 feet to 8.49. Just wanted to tell you there is another option, but probably made it more confusing by explaining it. The fact is that the applicant could construct a 1-story addition with that 8.49 square feet or foot setback and be in compliance with the ordinance, so and not require a variance for a 1-story. Here we have the elevations submitted by the applicant showing the attached garage with the 2nd story, floor plan, and then again floor plan of the showing the existing garage. They're proposing to add a 2nd or 3rd garage and then living space above it. Photo of the property and then adjacent properties along the cul-de-sac and looking along OD Place. And then this is the area where that addition would be constructed. Again, the fact is reasonable use of land exists. They could build a 1-story attached garage and meet the setbacks and get a building permit today. There's no reason, no issue that would that we can cite that would justify having a second story added to the proposed attachment. So staff is recommending to deny the request. The applicant is in the audience. If there are any questions for staff at this time.
Thanks, Fletcher. John?
We don't have that.
Fletcher, can you pull up the aerial? I think we can ascertain. It's not required, John, but a good point.
What it could be is it could be 8 feet along that side lot line. So they could propose an addition themselves, or if the property were damaged and someone had to come back in and build a single-family dwelling, they could have an 8-foot setback.
But John, it's a wonderful question, and as you can see from the aerial, the property adjacent to it is quite close to that common lot line.
I've got a quick question, Fletcher, and it might just be because I got confused on what you said. So if the addition, even if it was moved back to sort of get that 12-foot setback, it still wouldn't qualify because being attached would trigger the setback on the two existing house corners? Is that?
Well, the one house corner, which is at 10.5 feet, would be required to have a 12-foot setback because it would be considered a two-story structure on that side of the house. On the other side, it would still be one story, requiring an 8-foot setback. So they'd still be in compliance on the east side, but by adding the second story and trying to reduce the setback to a second story on the west side, then all the structure has to be set back 12 feet.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chair, if
Yeah,
we use
Vicki.
this graphic as an example, let's say that green line is our lot line. So you could do an addition, as Fletcher said, you have to maintain an 8-foot setback. Then when you want to go to the two-story part, then that setback has to be 20 feet. So you could do a one-story addition, and then once you hit a 20-foot separation from the lot line, you could then add your second story. So there's options.
Or they could just build a one-story attached garage and get a building permit today.
Thank you. I got it now. Karen?
I guess that was my original question too, is why you couldn't, just move it back because of the house. I understand that. If you stuck with a one-story structure and then put the two-story but put it back farther, I don't know how that would go. You'd have to have part of a garage.
I believe they've looked at it and they can't fit it in doing a second story above the attached garage and meet that 20-foot setback and have any actual usable area. But having an attached garage, single story, would be reasonable use and wouldn't need a variance, so.
Yeah,
They could build in a garage without having that extra room above it.
yeah. I was just trying to figure out what size that room would be if they pushed the garage back a little ways and did the one-story garage in a
Well, we did look at that before they submitted a variance, and it didn't appear to be something that the applicant could manage.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments on Kurt?
That, the second floor, it looks like it's just going to be storage space or something. Is there a plan to make that a accessory dwelling unit someday?
I'm sorry, if you could use the microphone, it just helps us for our record keeping.
I didn't fill out the paper.
That's all right. Just say your name when you're up there and we'll...
Brad Madsen.
Thank you.
Basically, that extra space will be office and bonus room to free up a bedroom as we're getting an addition to our family. We have 4 kids. We're getting a 5th kid, and we need, more room, basically. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no other questions.
Karen?
Okay, I'll start the process again. Because there would be reasonable use of the land without that second floor, it's going to be difficult for me to vote for this. So I'm going to make a motion to deny it based on the fact that there is reasonable use of the land to build and construct a garage.
All right, Karen made the motion to deny the variance, and Mike Quasny seconded that motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of denial of this variance, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carries with John and Kurt as no. That being our last item on the zoning board of adjustment, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. All right, Mike.
Question?
What's that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to make a comment, if I could, on the first item. I wanted to make sure it was clear why my vote was no, because I think we overlooked the encroachment on the right-of-way, and I wanted to be careful in the fact that when we do say something like this in the future, that yes, the boulevard may be one of the reasons for the exception, we also ignored the fact that there was somebody who was encroaching on the right-of-way, and we didn't answer that. So this was one of the reasons why I voted no. So I just wanted to make that comment before we close out this session.
Thanks, Vince. So Mike made the motion to adjourn, and Rachel seconded the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, moving on to Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for August 8th, 2019. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item, please turn in a speaker request form and hand it to the staff along the left wall. And if you have a cell phone on, please turn it to silent if you haven't already. Consent calendar. Items 1 through 9 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 2, 19 PD 030. Item 3, 19 PD 031, and Item 9, 19 UR 015. The Rapid City Planning Commission's actions on these items are final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 9 that staff wants to remove?
No, thank you.
Any items 1 through 9 that any planning commissioner wants to remove? And any items 1 through 9 that any audience member would like removed? Chair would then entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 1 through 9, in accordance with staff's recommendation. All right, Mike Gallagher made the motion, and Karen seconded the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10.
Mr. Chair, item number 10 was continued from the last July meeting to allow the applicant to meet with staff. We did have that meeting, and the applicant is still does not want to move forward at this time and is asking that it be continued to the August 22nd Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. Is there a motion to continue? All right, Rachel made the motion, and Kurt seconded the motion to continue to August 22nd. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any discussion items or staff items for today? Ken?
Yes. So yesterday we held our Coffee with Planners event again, and we had a successful event. Some of you were there. We appreciate that support and attendance. One of the three topics we had was our affordable housing excuse me, survey and preparation of a policy that will be coming forward to you at our next meeting. And this is kind of setting a platform for some future actions, ordinance amendments, and a affordable housing strategic plan that will be coming forward for your review and approval as well. So that's a big effort we've got. We also are working on landscape requirement amendments, and that was a successful discussion that we had there. Will eventually come your way for review as well. And also our land use, excuse me, not the land use specifically, but the review of our comp plan, the Plan Rapid City, what the objectives and components of the plan were. So it was another successful event, and we'll be doing it again in November. If you have not yet had the opportunity to fill out the survey for affordable housing, I would encourage you to do so. Go onto the city's website. There's a link right up front. You can go to it. It's very short, concise, and yet to the point. And I think we've already had close to 1,000 respondents on that, and that's really informing us as to the support for what we're trying to do.
That's great. It was a great turnout yesterday. I wasn't sure what to expect with the rally, and a lot of people showed up. Vicki? Okay. Any other items for us today? I'd look for a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Rachel made the motion, and Eric seconded it.